perspective of how players are going to look at this money, and you can tell from her reaction, it's like, whoa, that's a whole different level of cash we're talking about.
The max was $90,000.
I mean, even just say, like, you haven't been playing the league for what, 1-2 years or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's just even talk now. You're a current.
Okay, I'm a current player.
These players are making max $250.
Now I'm making $250, then $90. And let's see, $5 million, $2 million. I mean, guys, you do the math. Who's going to turn that down? And then I'll have a chance to have equity in this league.
You just heard it from a WNBA legend who's seen it all. The numbers aren't just impressive, they're apocalyptic for the league. And when Angel McCoughtry, a 6-time All-Star who once volunteered to be Caitlin Clark's enforcer, starts doing the math on why players will abandon ship, you know the WNBA is staring down its own extinction event. This isn't speculation anymore. It's math. Cold, brutal, financially devastating math that makes loyalty look like career suicide. The writing isn't just on the wall, it's spray-painted in neon letters 10 feet high. Project B, the shadowy new league that's been whispered about in locker rooms and agent-spiked offices, just dropped financial bombs that make the WNBA's entire pay structure look like a charity fundraiser. We're talking about offers so massive that even the league's biggest stars would be foolish to turn them down. And at the center of this financial earthquake sits one name that could either save or destroy the WNBA, Caitlin Clark. But here's where it gets messy. While the league hemorrhages credibility over money, Sophie Cunningham just threw gasoline on a different fire, making controversial comments about WNBA fans that have the internet exploding. The timing couldn't be worse. You've got players potentially jumping ship for generational wealth, while simultaneously alienating the very fans who could save the league. It's chaos on every front. Many of you have been connecting these dots for weeks, piecing together why the league's biggest stars keep deflecting questions about their future. Now we've got the receipts, delivered by someone who knows exactly what she's talking about. If you believe the story behind the story matters, if you want to understand why the WNBA might lose its most valuable asset, smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track as we decode the biggest crisis in women's basketball history. Let's start with Project B, because this is the earthquake that's about to swallow everything. This isn't just another basketball league. This is a complete reimagining of what professional women's basketball compensation should look like. And the numbers being floated aren't incremental improvements. They're civilization-altering, legacy-defining, change-your-family tree forever kind of money. The baseline offer, the minimum salary for an end-of-the-bench player who barely sees court time, is $2 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $2 million, not for stars, for role players. Now compare that to the WNBA's maximum contract, which sits at a measly $90,000 for top-tier talent. We're not talking about a raise here. We're talking about a 22-fold increase for players who wouldn't even crack the starting lineup. But the money doesn't stop at salaries. Project B is offering something the WNBA never could: equity. Players aren't just earning paychecks, they're getting ownership stakes in the league itself. This transforms athletes from employees into stakeholders, giving them a direct financial interest in the league's growth and success. It's the kind of forward-thinking approach that builds generational wealth, the kind of opportunity that makes agents practically beg their clients to take meetings. And this is where the WNBA's entire value proposition collapses like a house of cards. Because once you introduce this level of financial security, every other argument becomes irrelevant. Loyalty? That's a luxury only the already wealthy can afford. Geographic preference? That's negotiating theater. Pride in building something. That's what rich people say to workers they're underpaying.
Talk about Sophie Cunningham making some comments about WNBA fans, what she believes fans may not have right about WNBA players, and how a lot of fans feel about, I would assume, hard plays, aggressive plays. I'm not quite sure.
Let's filter out the noise for a second and address the Sophie Cunningham situation because it's symptomatic of a bigger problem. Sophie recently made comments defending WNBA players, arguing that fans misjudge them based on aggressive on-court behavior. Her point was that competitive intensity doesn't equal off-court nastiness, that fans need to get to know players better before forming opinions. Now, here's the thing. Sophie's core message has merit. Athletes in high-pressure situations do things in the heat of competition that don't reflect their everyday personalities. That's sports one-on-one. But the delivery, the implication that fans are somehow failing in their duty to properly understand players, landed like a lead balloon. Because fans don't owe players homework. Fans pay attention to what they see, and what they see sometimes looks less like competitive fire and more like unsportsmanlike conduct. The controversy highlights a dangerous disconnect. At a moment when the league desperately needs to strengthen its relationship with supporters, when fan loyalty might be the only thing preventing a mass exodus of talent, having players publicly critique the audience feels tone-deaf. It's like the Titanic's crew complaining about passenger attitudes while the ship takes on water. And here's where Sophie's comments intersect with the larger financial crisis. Because if players are contemplating multi-million-dollar offers overseas or in rival leagues, fan perception suddenly matters even less to them. Why cultivate a relationship with WNBA audiences if you're planning your exit strategy? The lack of financial investment from the league creates a lack of emotional investment from players, which creates a vicious cycle of disconnect.
What else does the player got going on off the court? Do they take basketball seriously, or do they want to be a celebrity influencer? Well, you know what I'm talking about, right? So I thought that was interesting and that you guys would want to see that. Let's go over here. This is the Good Follow podcast. Hell, go subscribe. It looks like it's relatively new. The lady on the left is Angel McCoughtry. Like I said, we're talking about a real force in the league. 5-time All-Star, 2 times.
That question about what players have going on off the court, whether they prioritize basketball or celebrity status, cuts to the core of the league's identity crisis. And it's a fair question to ask when you're trying to understand who's truly committed to building something versus who's just passing through on their way to bigger paydays. Now let's talk about Angel McCoughtry, because her perspective carries weight that few others can match. She's not some analyst with a hot take. She's a battle-tested warrior who spent nearly 2 decades in the trenches of professional women's basketball. 39 years old now, McCoughtry is a 6-time All-Star, a 2-time scoring champion, and averaged over 18 points per game across her entire career. This is someone who knows the financial realities from the inside, who's lived through the paycheck-to-paycheck existence that even elite WNBA players experience. Last season, McCoughtry made headlines by volunteering to join the Indiana Fever as Caitlin Clark's enforcer, offering to be the veteran presence who'd protect the rookie phenom from the physical warfare that veteran players were inflicting. That alone tells you about her credibility and her insight into league dynamics. She understands the politics, the jealousies, the unspoken hierarchies. So when Angel McCoughtry appears on the Good Follow podcast and starts breaking down Project B's financial offers, when she starts doing the math on why players would be crazy not to jump ship, it's not speculation. It's prophecy from someone who's earned the right to speak truth. The contrast she lays out is absolutely devastating. WNBA max contract, $90,000. Project B minimum salary, $2 million. That's not a competitive offer. That's a wrecking ball swinging directly at the foundation of the league's entire structure. Let me know in the comments what you think happens when Project B officially launches. Do you think Caitlin Clark stays loyal to the WNBA, or does she follow the money? Because based on what we're about to reveal, loyalty might be the most expensive decision of her career. McCoughtry doesn't just throw numbers around without context. She walks through the implications with surgical precision. If a bench player commands $2 million, what does that mean for established stars? What about the transcendent talents who move the needle, who pack arenas, who generate the media coverage that makes leagues profitable? Her projections for A'ja Wilson, the reigning MVP and arguably the most dominant player in the WNBA right now, are staggering. $8 to $10 million per year. That's 8 to 10 times what Wilson currently makes in the WNBA. Not 8 to 10% more, 8 to 10 times more. That's the difference between a comfortable living and setting up your entire family for generations. That's the difference between being a well-paid athlete and being genuinely wealthy. But those numbers pale in comparison to what McCoughtry estimates for Caitlin Clark. $15 million, $20 million, even $25 million per year. These aren't just raises. These are wealth-building opportunities that would make Clark one of the highest-paid female athletes on the planet, not just in basketball, but in any sport. To put that in perspective, Clark's Nike deal is estimated around $20 million annually. Project B could potentially match or exceed her entire endorsement portfolio just through playing salary. Think about what that means for a 22-year-old athlete looking at her career trajectory. In 3 years with Project B at $20 million per year, she'd earned $60 million just from playing basketball. That's more than most WNBA players will earn in their entire careers combined. That's retire your parents' money. That's never worry about anything again money. That's build a business empire money. And this is where the WNBA's desperation becomes palpable, because Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She's the golden goose, the phenomenon who single-handedly drove massive television ratings, who filled arenas on the road, who made casual sports fans suddenly care about women's basketball. Losing her wouldn't just be a blow to the league. It would be an extinction-level event. The narrative that's been carefully constructed by WNBA players and officials, the story about wanting to stay home and play domestically, gets absolutely demolished by McCoughtry's honesty. She calls it exactly what it is: negotiating tactics, a convenient fiction designed to extract concessions from the league while masking the underlying truth that money talks louder than geography. McCoughtry speaks from deeply personal experience about playing overseas. She recounts her time in places like Istanbul, Turkey, painting a picture that's the opposite of sacrifice. Great food, rich culture, legendary parties that last until 7 in the morning on-off days. This isn't hardship. This is an adventure that happens to pay better than staying home. She completely reframes what playing internationally means. It's not about exile or compromise. It's about combining elite-level basketball with incredible life experiences and getting paid handsomely for both. The idea that players are reluctant to leave the United States, that they're making some noble sacrifice by staying in the WNBA, gets exposed as the manufactured narrative it always was. Reading between the lines reveals something even more troubling for the league. If veterans like McCoughtry are publicly acknowledging that players will absolutely follow the money regardless of location, what does that say about the WNBA's leverage in future negotiations? What does it say about the league's ability to compete for talent when deeper-pocketed rivals emerge? The answer is devastating. The WNBA has no leverage. None. When Project B offers 22 times the compensation for role players and potentially 250 times the compensation for superstars, every other consideration becomes background noise. Let's connect the dots on what this means for Caitlin Clark specifically. She's coming off a rookie season where she transformed the league's visibility and profitability. She generated unprecedented attention, drove record viewership, and became must-see television. By every measurable metric, she's the most valuable asset in women's basketball. Now imagine you're Clark's agent, and Project B slides across the table an offer for $20 million per year with equity participation. You'd be committing malpractice If you didn't seriously consider it, you'd be failing your fiduciary duty to your client. The emotional attachment to the WNBA, the loyalty to a league that benefited enormously from her presence, becomes irrelevant when the financial gap is that enormous. And here's the brutal truth that the WNBA doesn't want to acknowledge. They created this vulnerability through decades of undervaluing their own product and their own athletes. They built a system where even max contract players need to play overseas in the off-season just to make ends meet. They cultivated an environment where financial security was something players had to seek elsewhere. Project B didn't create this crisis. They're simply exploiting the vacuum that the WNBA's leadership created through years of short-sighted financial management and failure to adequately compensate the talent that makes their league possible. The confluence of all these factors creates a perfect storm. You've got unprecedented financial incentives pulling players away. You've got respected veterans publicly acknowledging that the money is too good to refuse. You've got internal controversies like Sophie Cunningham's comments alienating fans at the worst possible moment. And you've got the league's most marketable star position perfectly to benefit from jumping ship. Many of you predicted this exact scenario months ago, noticing how players dodged questions about their futures, how the league's attempts to build momentum felt desperate rather than confident. You were onto something. The breadcrumbs were there for anyone willing to follow them. The WNBA now faces an existential question. Can they adapt fast enough to prevent the exodus? Can they find investors willing to dramatically increase player compensation to competitive levels? Can they repair the relationship with fans while simultaneously convincing players that staying is worth the financial sacrifice? The clock isn't just ticking, it's counting down to 0. And when Project B officially launches, when those contracts get put in front of players with actual signatures required, we're going to find out exactly how much loyalty is worth when measured against generational wealth. If you want to stay ahead of this story, if you want to know the moment Caitlin Clark makes her decision, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. Because when this bomb drops, it's going to reshape women's basketball forever. We'll be here breaking down every angle, every implication, every consequence. The question isn't whether the WNBA can survive losing stars to Project B. The question is whether the league as we know it can survive at all. Stick around, because the answer is coming faster than anyone expected, and it's not going to be pretty for the establishment. We'll see you in the next one, where the fallout continues to unfold